just to make you guys understand that I don't have to review another Foster's Home episode for any time near in the close future, and the fact that I already did another review of this show last month. Here's another review: the Bloo, Superdude, and the Magic Potato of Power. The longest title, and leads to my issues of typing in title episodes in my episode reviews when I did my Hannah Montana marathon. But at least that this is something that happens once in a while for some cartoons. This episode is just mainly about Bloo telling the story about Bloo Superdude to Mac. That's really what this episode is mainly about. And I honestly think that this episode is pretty much the best what I can actually review from the show in general. I know some of you guys are probably waiting for me to review the 44-minute special of World completely going away because of what he's been through, and other episodes like the Imagination episode that premiered in 2008, but I really don't have plans on and I don't have interest, but I will try to review them in the future. The reason why I'm doing a review of this episode is because it's mostly simple, and I actually think that this is one of those episodes that I actually found the most entertaining with the episodes I've seen from season 5 of the show. The story Bloo talks to Mac about, I honestly think that it's mostly hilarious, and it just happens so out of nowhere for probably the ending, but I'll get to that later. It's mainly about the crystal potato, or the magic potato, that people just can't get away from it because of how beautiful it looks. Lord Sudney, who is Mr. Hellman actually, really wants that crystal potato, but Bloo completely takes it away, but then it ends up going to him. I'm not complaining about this because what's going to happen will probably show everything onto why I don't take this episode seriously. A fairy, who is actually Frankie, completely says that in order to get what they need to get, which is the magic potato, they have to do chores. 3 chores. And they're not really that difficult, but it's just mainly difficult for Bloo's perspective because, well, you know, he's lazy and stuff like that and full of himself. But this actually leads to the climax of this episode between Bloo Superdude against Lord Snooty. Seriously, I honestly think that these types of ideas really work for this episode, and the fact that it's actually a really entertaining way to make this episode a lot more humorous for what they actually do. The comedy just usually works for this type of show's humor, and what they actually do later on in this episode before the ending really makes this episode a lot more entertaining. Whenever I actually see these characters be a portrayal of one of those characters you see from a TV show or movie or a comic book or a spoof, it really makes everything a lot more better to make this episode a lot more entertaining when it comes to Bloo's story he's telling to Mac. For me personally, I honestly think that this type of comedy actually kind of works, and this type of character being portrayed off of characters from other material really works out for this episode's entertainment. And the fact that Mac actually believes most of this really shows that what happens at the end just really makes his dismay in full exposure, because that's just basically the sad thing I can say about this episode. Let's just get to that let's just get to that after I completely discuss about the magic potato that Bloo has been saying in his story. That magic potato was actually Mac's portable game system, because when you completely saw the ending of this, it's revealed that everything that Bloo and his friends did was just an exaggeration in Bloo's storytelling to Mac. Everything you see from these clips of characters being portrayed off of something, and the next scene they do one of the chores, it really shows how much of the exaggeration just comes into full view once you see the final part of this episode. Bloo threw the magic potato, or Mac's gaming system, out from the window because people were just too obsessed with it, because let's just say that what Bloo is saying, that people just couldn't get away from it because of how powerful it is, or should I say addictive it was to play a game off of Mac's portable system. When I watched this episode again in preparation for this review, I actually thought that this part of the episode was actually the one that made me convinced that this entire episode was mostly a waste of time and not a really great way to end off. But I honestly think that this is just basically Bloo's way of just trying to be friendly with Mac, despite the fact that he isn't really much friendly in other episodes. Because it's really difficult to actually have Bloo becoming a friend to Mac in these scenarios without actually seeing this type of stuff work out to have Bloo as the main character in some of these episodes. So whenever I actually see Mac completely in dismay that everything that Bloo said was just something that happened in the Foster's building and not actually something that happened in Bloo's imagination, really goes to show that we probably were never going to see Bloo Superdude ever again. Despite the fact that this was a season 5 episode, and this show was reaching to its end when it came to its following season. I mean, I do understand that people would still enjoy this episode nonetheless, despite what we've completely seen at the ending, but at the same time, it just really makes most of this, honestly, about over-exaggeration, and just something that Mac can easily see that he will probably not hear another story involving Bloo Superdude ever again. And let's go talk about Bloo Superdude. Just trying so hard to make him awesome to Mac. That's basically Bloo Superdude in a nutshell. I understand that this is just basically some kind of parody in the comics or something, and this is just ideals of Bloo just combining action superheroes into one of his imaginary superhero thing in his mind, but that's just basically what I have actually seen from Bloo Superdude in this episode alone. He's not terrible, he's just basically something that Bloo can actually imagine himself being a superhero, despite just trying to hide something what really happened all along. I know I'm not giving this character any more credit, to be quite honest. I do understand that he has great abilities that actually kind of works, but at the same time, considering that this is the only time we only get to see him and this was all an over-exaggeration, you can just say that this is just basically the Bendy of good characters that don't appear ever again. Because even if people may enjoy him, unlike Bendy, who is hateable in that episode, I really think that this is just basically this show's way of saying, this was all an over-exaggeration, don't expect him to actually come back. Besides, if you do actually request us to actually bring Bloo Superdude back, we will probably listen to that instead of just having Bendy return again afterwards, because we all know how hateable he is. This episode is honestly an episode that I can actually find entertainment out of, which actually does work, but at the same time, I honestly think that this episode's way of just having Bloo as the main focus really shows that I've completely seen the issues involving the episodes that I don't come back. When Bloo isn't the main character of this, he's mostly mean, but when it becomes the main character, he's mostly nice despite what's happening that his friend doesn't know about. I guess that pretty much shows onto why I don't usually come back to the show more often. I know I have made over-exaggerations when I've seen people make complaints about the friendships in these shows, but that's just basically what I actually had to follow, because I've completely know these issues, yet no one hasn't brought it up until someone had to because they couldn't take it anymore. So for anyone who's keep requesting me to actually do more reviews of this show, I will try my best to do more reviews, but at the same time, don't expect me to do tons more, because I really think that I want to pick an episode of my choosing so I can actually put my own perspective on each episode, so I can understand onto why I haven't come back to the show just like every other cartoon I've watched in the 2000s. I will give this episode a 7.25 out of 10. I know you may say that I'm just not looking at these episodes much more carefully, but like I mentioned in my last clips showing, I honestly think that this is just basically what I've seen in these episodes, unlike I did when I was longer, which is something that I've always experienced when it comes to growing up and just seeing newer things.